Non-Infrasturcture Awardees Teleconference. This teleconference is intended specifically for those managing non-infrastructure projects and or non-infrastructure components of combination infrastructure and non-infrastructure projects from all ATP cycles. So today's forum is different from our typical webinars in that today's participants are specifically those doing non-infrastructure work as part of the ATP. And we're running this as a teleconference, but we do have slides so that there is a visual to go with what we're saying. We hope that this call will be very interactive. For the time being, we're going to have you on mute so that there's not a lot of distraction in the background, but we do want you to let us know what your thoughts are as we go through this presentation, through this teleconference. So feel free to use the chat box for your comments, and then throughout the duration, we'll let you know when you can also offer comments over the phone. We have the option here to click on a button, on a function button that'll allow you to be unmuted so that you can speak on the phone on this call. Hopefully that makes sense. Next slide, please. Just quickly, my name is Victoria Custodio, and I'm going to be one of 4 presenters on today's teleconference. And we are here as part of the Active Transportation Resource Center, and we wanted to just share what our motivation is for this teleconference and really the work that we do at the Active Transportation Resource Center. So first off, and some of you might be familiar with these bullet points, but we're really hoping that they'll resonate with you so that you'll know that we're here for you. We're here to help California meet its long-term multimodal transportation, sustainability, health, safety, and equity goals. We're here to also help you build your awareness, confidence, and trust in the Active Transportation Resource Center and your understanding of what's expected as an ATP project implementer. We're here to assist you in making your ATP project as successful as possible, given all of the different resources and what we're learning from all of the different iterations of ATP cycles. And then, of course, we share the same long-term goal of the ATP program, which is to get people to safely walk and bicycle for transportation. This next slide introduces the speakers I mentioned earlier. So I'm going to let each of us introduce ourselves. But at the same time we do this, we're going to actually load 2 poll questions so that we have a better sense of who's on the call with us today. So the first poll question is going to be, have you previously attended an Active Transportation Resource Center webinar or teleconference? That's a yes or no. And then the second question is to gauge your familiarity with the ATRC. Are you very, somewhat, or not at all familiar? So just your best answer for each of those. And as far as the speakers on the list, I'm Victoria Custodio. I'm part of the California Department of Public Health, Injury and Violence Prevention Branch, Active Transportation Safety Program. We're under contract to Caltrans through an interagency agreement to provide Active Transportation Resource Center services, specifically promoting the non-infrastructure programmatic side and also lending our state public health lens. I'll go around the room here.
I'm Emily Abrahams, and I am at Caltrans in the Division of Local Assistance, the Office of State Programs, and the Active Transportation Program, and I am the project manager for non-infrastructure and plan project types within the Active Transportation Program, as well as assisting to run the Active Transportation Resource Center.
Hello everyone, my name is Summer Lopez. I'm also at Caltrans headquarters in the Division of Local Assistance in the Office of State Programs. I also work in the Active Transportation Program, and I am the Assistant Coordinator with Non-Infrastructure Programs and Plans, and I also assist with the Active Transportation Resource Center.
I'm Marianne Hernandez, and I work with Victoria here at the California Department of Public Health in support of NI projects and also to help populate the active transportation resources.
Okay, great. So this is Victoria again, and I'll just quickly share the poll results before we move on to our agenda for today, and we'll switch speakers for that. But first off, yeah, have you previously attended one of our teleconferences or webinars? We're getting about 48%, about 12 out of 25 are saying that you have, and the others are no's and not answering. And then as far as familiarity with the ATRC, the largest number is 13 out of 26. So that's about half of you, of course. And then the others are a little bit more familiar, and some are not at all. So thank you for sharing that picture of the group that is on the teleconference today. And on that note, I'll turn it over to Emily for our next slide.
Great, thanks. So yeah, it seems like we have a good mix of people who have attended in the past and haven't, kind of a 50-50 split almost, and then people who are somewhat familiar. So hopefully this is a good introduction for you guys, and we can continue to have this discussion. So for today's agenda, we have a few things on it for today. So as Victoria mentioned in the introduction, this is the first ATP Non-Infrasturcture Funded Programs teleconference, and we're launching these as a technical assistance opportunity for you who are the implementers of non-infrastructure projects in the Active Transportation Program. This is the first teleconference, and it'll basically kind of serve as an overview of non-infrastructure programs and give you some updates, and then we'll have time for some discussion. So after this teleconference, the ATRC does intend to offer future teleconferences along the same lines as this, about every quarter. We'll kind of see how that goes. And in future teleconferences, what we plan to do is to maybe have a specific focus on each one so that those of you who are implementing projects doing similar work can attend those teleconferences on those topics, and you can network with others who are doing the same type of work. So these aren't mandatory or an extra requirement, but we think they will be a valuable resource to you, so we hope you will take the time to attend when we do have them and they are relevant to you and your work. Again, these differ from our generic webinars because they're specific to ATP project implementers, and we want to talk about your specific projects in a little more detail. So, so that's kind of the idea of this, so hopefully it is valuable to all of you today. So we expect each teleconference to be about 30 minutes or so of maybe a presentation, and then we do want the majority of it to be discussion. So we will be doing that today. So for today's agenda, we will be, we'll do an overview of the Active Transportation Program, non-infrastructure program itself. Then we'll go over some ATRC non-infrastructure resources. And then we'll give you a little update on our non-infrastructure program guidance and the changes we're going to be making to that this next cycle. And then after that, attendees will be able to virtually network with others on the call, implementers and practitioners, and we'll be asking you to share some upcoming events and some programmatic successes and challenges, and you'll have the opportunity to ask questions of each other as well as us. All right, so we did want to ask you one more question, I guess. So please just take a minute to write in the chat box. We just want to know who's on the call today, and there's probably too many people to do actual introductions. So we just ask that in the chat box if you could just write your name, the agency you are with, and if you know the name of your ATP project and maybe the status of it, if it's not started yet, if it's underway, almost complete, or complete. So if you could just give us that information in the chat box as we continue the slides, that will be just really helpful to us to know who's on the call. All right, well, we'll continue while you're putting that information in. So yeah, just continue to just let us know who's there. So the first item on our agenda is we wanted to just review non-infrastructure projects. I'm pretty sure all of you on the call today as implementers of ATP non-infrastructure projects probably know all this, but we did want to just kind of set the stage for you. And these are the requirements of non-infrastructure projects per the CTC ATP guidelines. So just to go over them really quickly, a non-infrastructure project is education, encouragement, and enforcement activities that further the goals of the ATP. They can be non-infrastructure projects only, or they can be combination projects that have an infrastructure component and a non-infrastructure component. So non-infrastructure projects can be startup programs or new or expanded components to existing programs. They do need to be sustainable and demonstrate how they can be continued or integrated into other programs maybe in the area after the ATP funding is exhausted. ATP cannot fund existing or ongoing program operations, and the non-infrastructure projects are not limited to just those benefiting school students, but entire communities and other populations as well. So just as a refresher, I'm sure most of you already know this. Again, another item is as non-infrastructure implementers, you probably are aware of these as well. These are the non-infrastructure program core elements, and they are education, encouragement, enforcement, engineering, or pre-engineering in the sense of non-infrastructure, evaluation, and equity. And I just wanted to make a quick plug for our new non-infrastructure resource that we have on our website, which is the photos on the screen. If you go to our ATRC website and the link on the bottom of the page, you'll find these fact sheets, and there's a different fact sheet for each of those E's that I mentioned. And basically they just contain a simple definition of what that core element is, and gives some sample activities and some considerations for our planners and implementers to use as they implement their projects and serve their communities. So, yeah, check those out if you just want some ideas or want to just kind of get a general overview, a simple definition of what they are. All right, I'll pass it over to Victoria.
Sure. Hello again. This is Victoria, and so this next slide just highlights I think the quantity of projects that have been of non-infrastructure projects that have been funded through all of the cycles over time, and so we wanted to share this with you so that you had a sense of who else is out there. I think there are other documents that are prepared by other agencies that give you a sense of all of the projects that are funded in each of the ATP cycles, but we wanted to tease out who's doing non-infrastructure work and who's been funded to do this work in different cycles, and the next slide actually will talk about different districts. But very quickly, we've seen 78 non-infrastructure projects funded over all 4 ATP cycles to date. The largest number was from ATP Cycle 1, and then since then it's kind of bounced around quite a bit. As far as combination projects, again, we saw large numbers, large combination non-infrastructure and infrastructure, the largest numbers in Cycle 1, but it's been a little consistent over time, although Cycle 4, what we saw was there were a number of very large and medium, large projects, so with high price tags, and so there were a reduced number of ATP projects overall on Cycle 4, but we did get to see still some combination projects there. We've seen about 27 non-infrastructure and combination NI completed so far, and we're expecting about 35 plus to be completed within this next year. So the next slide gives a different picture of a lot of the same information. The ATP, as all of you know, is a statewide program, and this slide highlights across all of the different districts in California the ATP non-infrastructure and or combination projects in each Caltrans district. So with the exception of District 9, which is our Eastern Sierras, we actually are seeing non-infrastructure projects everywhere. So that's a very exciting thing to note from the state level. Clearly, we want to see these programs everywhere, and we feel like the work that you're doing and as early ATP implementers will definitely help the state and all of the regions see what works, and hopefully we'll continue to see non-infrastructure projects as part of this program over time. So on that note, I will turn it over to, I believe, Summer for the next slide.
Hello, everyone. So today I'm going to go over the ATRC and some of the functions that we provide and services that we provide. So the ATRC, the Active Transportation Resource Center, is a project funded through the Active Transportation Program, and it's administered by Caltrans. As the name suggests, the ATRC functions as a resource center, and we are driven by our mission to provide resources, technical assistance, and training to transportation partners across California in order to increase the opportunity for the success of active transportation projects. In order to staff the ATRC, Caltrans hires subject matter experts to develop, disseminate, and deliver resources, training, technical assistance in support of better active transportation projects. So the Active Transportation Resource Center does have a website, and it's connected to the Caltrans ATP website. You can visit that by visiting the link that's on the PowerPoint, and that is the caatpresources.org, and you're able to sign up to it for our listserv so that you can stay informed on all that the ATRC has to offer. We do send out trainings, updates on the ATP, and resources that are all available to help you have success in your projects and programs. And we do provide a great resource to assist you with tailored assistance in the case that your district is unable to specifically help you with your projects and programs. So this here is a visual representation of all the different efforts that are going on by the ATRC, and the flowchart is currently posted on our ATRC website, so you can print this out, and it's a great resource to be in the know of all the training resources and technical assistance that we offer. The non-infrastructure specific support that we will be discussing today is the one that's listed in the 3 light blue boxes.
Great. So I just wanted to add on to kind of clarify maybe a little bit more about the different layers of support. So the ATRC, as was mentioned, is one layer of support, but then I know many of you are in contact with your local district staff as well as maybe headquarters Caltrans staff, and so I just wanted to kind of clarify the difference between all the different people who you may be in contact with your project. So it's important just to be aware of the distinctions between these and who the best source would be for specific ATP questions you may have. So I like to think of questions as either being more administrative in nature or maybe more programmatic in nature. So if they are administrative, such as processes like allocations, invoices, scope changes, things like that, then your Caltrans district would be your first primary point of contact. And so they would be the ones who you'd contact first. Then if your question is maybe more programmatic in terms of how your non-infrastructure program is being implemented, maybe some best practices, some resources that can assist the activities you're doing as part of your program, then that's where the ATRC really comes into play, and you could contact and reach out to ATRC representatives to assist you with those type of questions. So hopefully that helps kind of clarify who you contact for what. In terms of the administrative questions or processes, as I mentioned, your Caltrans district will be your primary point of contact, and there are 2 people probably in the district who you'd want to know. The first one is the district local assistance engineer, and also known as the DLAE, if you hear that acronym. and that is the person who provides the management and oversight on local assistance programs, and one of those programs is the Active Transportation Program. So your agency may contact the DLAE to begin processes administratively when you start up your grant program or your non-infrastructure program. Then you also will probably be assigned someone in the district who is an ATP coordinator, and that person will be the lead who you'd coordinate with routinely on your project, and they will be your point of contact for any kind of administrative questions that you may have. Then there's also the headquarters ATP program managers, and that would be myself in summer for non-infrastructure programs, and you may also know of Desiree Fox or Teresa McWilliam, who are the infrastructure program managers. And so we're here to provide additional support. If the districts need us to help coordinate things, then we assist them and assist you, kind of more on policy level questions. And then the green box on the slide is the ATRC. So like I mentioned earlier, the ATRC non-infrastructure support is provided by the California Department of Public Health, and they're under the umbrella of the Active Transportation Resource Center, and they can provide phone consultations, email, answer questions via email, and point you in the right direction for various best practices and resources. So, so hopefully that kind of helps clarify who you can go to for what. But of course, if you go to any of these people, you know, we can point you in the right direction. So we'll go over a little more detail about what the non-infrastructure support is on the next few slides.
Hi, this is Marianne, and I wanted to go over what's on our ATRC. Summer did a great summary of what's on our site, but this is a little more specific. It looks like on our poll question, we didn't have a whole lot of people very familiar, and I hope after this call you'll become very familiar with our ATP, our ATRC, ATP, atpresources.org. This is what we have on the site. We have an on-call assistant, so Victoria and I will answer your specific calls. If you have specific information, you have questions, we're the go-to people for that. So that's on-call assistance. You can call us or email us, and you'll see all our emails and phone numbers in a minute. We have workshops and teleconferences. We have a few one workshop posted, a very good one we did just in December on NI projects, so you might want to check that one out. And that was a 4-hour workshop. We are doing a teleconference today, but there are other teleconferences posted on our website that you can listen to. And then finally, webinars, we probably have the most of. We have 47 posted now, webinars. The last ones we had one was quite popular, was First Last Mile, on what Caltrans is doing to encourage First Last Mile and how that can be incorporated into non-infrastructure grants. We had one on using the Healthy Places Index tool in preparation for Cycle 5 coming up, so you can measure your community, whether it's disadvantaged or not. And we also had one not too long ago on non-infrastructure campaigns that you can do locally. Also, we have flash trainings. It's not listed on here, but those are more administrative type trainings. They're similar to the webinar, but they're very technical. One of the last ones we gave was on using how to use the counts guidance that was published, interim counts guidelines on non-infrastructure grants, and how you work with your 22R, which is part of your grant. We have NI project interviews and site visits, so Victoria and I and our counterpart Valerie and Emily and I, we go to site visits to see what you're doing, and we'll hear more about that later because we really want to set that up for the year when we can visit with you. To reiterate what Emily said on this slide, you'll see our contact information. Again, we would prefer you to go through your district offices for administrative type questions. And if you can, if more policy oriented, you'll contact Emily and Summer. But Victoria, Valerie, and myself will be your one-on-one. If you have questions, we're available. That's what we're for, to offer technical assistance. Our counterpart, Valerie, is temporarily on leave, but she'll be back soon. And we have the state divided up by districts that we serve, that we're assigned. I also wanted to let you know that the slides and the recordings will be available after this call. So I know some of you have to log off early, I've already heard. So this will be posted on our ATRC website, which is California ATPresources.org. Thanks. I'll go ahead and pass it on to see if you have any questions, I think is our next, before we move on.
Yeah, so that was kind of a lot of us talking, but it gives an overview of non-infrastructure programs, the Resource Center, and the technical assistance we provide. So if you do have any questions about any of those topics, write them in the chat box. You can, I think there's the raise the hand button. If you'd like to actually ask your question and speak on the phone, please do that, and we'll be able to unmute you. So if anyone has any questions, please do let us know.
We encourage you not to be shy. Usually if you have a question, someone else also has that same question, and it just really does help the ball, help to get the ball rolling by having someone chime in with any questions they might have. All right.
We have
good. Okay. So we do have a question about what are the different reasons to call the Resource Center again. So did you want to start us off, Emily?
Sure, yeah. I mean, we want this to be a discussion. So, yeah, if you need basically any resources or best practices maybe to look to just help you in running your program. Maybe you have something in your scope of work that you yourself may not have a lot of familiarity or expertise with, but you know that there's probably something out there that can guide you. So you could reach out to us and we could help point you in the right direction. We're familiar with many other ATP projects throughout the state, so maybe the question you have has been answered in some way, or we have an example we can point to in another region of the state. So things like that, I think, is kind of first and foremost why you may want to contact us and ask us questions just about activities within your program.
Right, and this is Victoria. I'll just chime in and say we've tried to characterize, the different types of non-infrastructure technical assistance that we're able to provide. So again, if you have questions, we've broken it down around program development, actually implementation, and then evaluation. We can consult on all of those different, phases of your project. If you've got questions about partnerships and references, we can also kind of dig deep into our network to see who else is doing what to get you in contact if you don't have those connections already. Lots of case study sharings, I think, and then other kinds of brainstorming and troubleshooting. As far as materials and things like that, we have quite a few. We have access to different curricula, different language materials, things like that. So, yeah, really, it never hurts to send us your questions.
Yeah, and when we say, contact us, what we do mean is any of the contacts on the previous slide. So Victoria, Marianne, Val, who will be coming back soon. But you can also, there's the emails at the bottom of the screen, atsp@cdph.ca.gov. And that one, any of those people at Department of Public Health will be able to answer through that inbox. So, so that's probably your best bet, to just reach out to them first. and see, what kind of resources they can provide you.
So we do have a question about coverage for valve shipment, and we are happy to say that our colleague will be returning to the ATRC next month. We do understand that she's going to have a slightly modified schedule, so we're all going to do that. We're going to play a zone and fill in to make sure that each awardee is getting the assistance that they need, and so Val will be your point of contact, but we'll also have a lot of support for her as she comes back, transitions back.
And you might just, as Emily just mentioned, to be safe, send it to the ATSP at cdph.ca.gov, because we look at those.
Yeah.
It comes to all of us.
Okay. This is a great question. So how do we get you to come to TA to a region? So I'll turn it over to Emily first, and then we'll fill in.
So we mentioned the workshops that we can do. So basically, it's upon request. So send us an email, contact us, let us know that you're interested in maybe doing a workshop, or some kind of a one-on-one technical assistance. And we'll work with you and try to get that scheduled as best we can.
Yeah, I think so this is Victoria. I don't want to jump ahead in our slide deck, but we are going to talk a little bit about different events that are coming up, and we can definitely, we have some travel funds to allow us to get to different parts of the state so that we can see your events in action, and if it helps to actually come before an event, if that's the kind of technical assistance that's needed, we can work with you on that so that it's really in service to your efforts. Hopefully that answers that question. We've got another question about project deadlines, and that there are a number of community events that are happening before the deadline. So given the current COVID-19 restrictions that we're under, we believe that we'll not be able to meet this on time. What's the process for extensions?
And so, yeah, that's a great question. It kind of falls into that administrative category. So I would say reach out to your district contact first. Let them know, what the situation is. And, there are time extension processes, so they can help guide you through that if a time extension is needed. So we understand that you have to, protect the health and safety of the communities. So, so if a time extension is needed, definitely just let us know, and we'll help you through that process.
And we have been receiving other requests, some similar requests, and we know that this is a priority right now. We have a question about possible attendance of ATRC staff at task force meetings, so that we could come and provide technical assistance directly to partners and district staff. Is that an allowable, is that something allowable for us to do?
Yeah, I think that'll be probably on a case-by-case basis. So let us know, what the task force is, what kind of presentation or topic you're interested in having us present or be a part of. So just reach out to us case-by-case basis and let us know.
Okay. So, and we have another question that's come in, and this is actually a good one. I'm thinking that we could open this up to the phone line. So this is a question asking about, so clearly there's a school district that is expressing that they don't want to be continue to be part of a grant. So I'd like to, if this is okay, see if we can actually turn this over to the bigger group to discuss. From the state's perspective, you are funded through a competitive grant program, and the scope of work is part of what allowed you and the partnerships that you had in your grant were what allowed you to kind of rise in the competitive rankings to be awarded these investments. So it's really in your interest to have all of the identified schools and school districts in your original proposal continue on in your grant. That said, we often know that there are extenuating circumstances that need to be addressed. but lack of interest is probably not considered one of them. So, actually, if we could turn that over to the group, I think that this would be a really nice little, we could have like 5-minute interaction on this question just so that we can get this person in with support. Is anyone interested in speaking up, chiming in, or adding to the chat to answer this question about addressing school districts for safe routes to school projects that might not want to continue to be part of the grant? Oh, we got a flashing chat feature. Oh, it's a different question. All right. Okay, you can also raise your hand, use that feature. Okay, and if there's no support here, we could definitely follow up with that particular person. And I think, the WebEx keeps records of this, right? So we can follow up with you directly and talk through that. And if it's a matter of providing some additional support and reminders of agreements that were made as part of the grant, we can kind of help you with those communications. Okay. Yeah, do you want to ask her? Oh, trying to figure out how to talk. Perfect. Okay. So, Erminia, I believe is your name. We're going to unmute you now. Are you there on the phone?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So we're still in discussions with one of the school districts that originally had agreed to partnership with us on the Train the Trainer grant. But now it seems like they're backpedaling because of the sustainability. So once the city steps aside after the grant's over, it almost seems like they don't want the responsibility of taking it on within their district. And so now they're giving us a little pushback, even though we're still in discussions. But how would you suggest we handle something like that? And also, when the application was put in, it was a different superintendent. And so now we have a new superintendent, and so I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think, there are changes that happen, in school districts and things like that, so we know that is something that can happen. I think we just need to do our best to try to reach out to them and let them know the benefits of this type of program and all that stuff, and really just do our due diligence to do as much as we can and make a good faith effort to do so. And if, the end result is they can't, then, contact the district and we'll have to work with you on how to address that. But in terms of sustainability and how a program maybe gets sustained after, if that's their biggest concern, we can probably look to other examples of maybe how that's played out in other projects, and maybe that could help ease their concerns a bit. So yes, I think we'll do some follow-up with you on that.
Yeah. Okay. And Erminia, I'll just say very quickly that we have seen this problem that happen in other projects, and so we have a ton of resources and references. I think a lot of what we need to do is kind of outline the process of engagement, and then also help you develop a roadmap of kind of how the work can be sustained through the existing district practices and or committees or efforts, that kind of thing. So we can definitely help you with that, but a lot of it is kind of meeting the district again where they are amidst all the changes, and road mapping and documenting everything, and really being kind of clear about the process that's being used to continue the engagement and the communications. And we certainly can coach you through that, help you outline it, and help you do that road mapping that can help with the process.
Okay, and so I would reach out to Marianne for that?
Depending on your district, yes. So yeah. Where are you, okay. I'm just curious, where are you calling from?
District 10, City of Stockton.
Perfect. Okay, great. Perfect. And just a reminder to everyone, thank you for everyone for weighing in on that and letting us answer that that question. If you would like to be unmuted, please just let us know and through the chat and click on that raised hand feature, and then we can unmute you. All right. I did see one more question earlier. Okay, let's see. So the question was about funding a school to have a staff member working at just one school.
Yeah, and actually, we do have our next section will be on the non-infrastructure program guidance, which may kind of help answer this question. Yep. But it is an allowable cost to have to pay school district staff to work on the non-infrastructure program. Yeah. So yeah.
Let's see if we can unmute Miguel quickly, and then that way he can just we can make sure that we have his question correct. There we go. Perfect. Mm-hmm. Miguel, are you there? Miguel? All right. That's not working right now. Maybe hopefully we answer the question, and if we haven't, Miguel, just let us know via oh, you don't have a mic. That's okay.
Well, we'll get into the non-infrastructure guidance at the next section at a high level, but just so you know, we do have guidance on non-infrastructure programs. So definitely check that out. That tells you, what types of things are allowed, costs and things like that. So let's move on, and there'll be plenty of more opportunity for questions and discussion as we go.
So we're going to go over our updates, some of the updates that we're making to our non-infrastructure program guidance. Currently, we're updating this guidance, and what we're really doing is working on clarifying a few processes, and those include consultant selections, work plan modifications and scope changes, and we're also working to increase the flexibility and eligibility requests. For example, if there's particular items or activities that you would like to include in your scope, and you're unsure whether or not it would be considered eligible under the non-infrastructure guidance, we would like to just plan a phone call with you and be able to approve these on a case-by-case basis. We really just want it to become a little bit more flexible. And the reason for that is because we want to encourage your creativity in your non-infrastructure projects and in what those could look like. And we also want agencies to feel comfortable consulting with us if there's something in particular that you'd like to include in your scope that may not particularly be included in our eligibility. So as long as your project gets at encouraging active transportation or educating people around active transportation, then we really want to be flexible in including it, being able to include these things in your scope of work, also known as your 22R. You go to the next slide. We've also included some supplemental guidance documents as appendices in these revised NI guidance. And the goal and purpose behind these documents is to just assist the agencies in making decisions based on best practices and requirements or recommendations for procedures regarding media campaigns, open streets and demonstration projects, and we're also providing a new checklist for helmet distributions that should help not only with safe routes to school projects, but also as incentives or when a project is not safe routes to school. As mentioned earlier, these are still being updated, but we suspect them to be posted to our website probably by the end of this month, and that can be found on the ATP website, and the link is listed there on the PowerPoint. But as Emily mentioned earlier, you can currently find our most current NI guidance on the ATP website until then. So we hope that that can be used as a resource for you until we have our updated ones posted. Are there any questions on the NI guidance?
Okay, we have a question. Have we changed guidance to allow the cost of helmets as an eligible ATP cost? So, Emily, you want to take that first?
Yeah, so helmets are an eligible cost. They're eligible in terms of an equipment cost, if that's part of the equipment items needed as part of your program, not to be given away. So you can purchase helmets in that way. You can also purchase helmets as an incentive, and they're considered a major incentive, so there are some limitations to it. And the current guidance just says that it has to be 2 helmets per grade level, per school, per year. And we are, as we're updating the guidance, as Summer mentioned, we are revisiting those and seeing if there's any changes or some more flexibility we can maybe build in. So stay tuned for maybe what comes out of that. I'm not sure how it will change in terms of for Safe Routes to School projects, but we're also looking into how helmets could be eligible for maybe a more community-wide project and kind of what criteria falls within that. And basically, the reason we have these limitations or criteria is just to really have that balance that we're not, you know, purchasing too many things, or the look of it, you know, still balances the needs for the program. So we want to make sure we're not just purchasing a bunch of items to be given away. We really want it to connect back to the education and encouragement components of the program. So, so just kind of weighing that balance as to why we have these guidance.
Excellent. So we are having questions about specific eligible items that are reimbursable under ATP. So storage boxes is one of them. Emily, you want to take that one?
Yeah, we did, I think, add that in last cycle when we updated the guidance. So yeah, I mean, if you're purchasing, you know, so many bikes and helmets and equipment, and you're, you know, transporting them throughout your region, you know, you do need to safely and securely store them. So we did add trailers and storage units as needed to host or store those bikes and equipment. And again, this kind of speaks to that sustainability. So, you know, if you're purchasing these large numbers of equipment, you know, we don't want it to just be used for the 2-3 years of the program. We want it to be sustained and continued on after, because there are these large purchases. So, so just keep that in mind as you are purchasing equipment and maybe storage facilities or trailers, you know, so that it is intended to be long-lasting and continuing of the program.
I'll read it out. So this one is looking to buy a drone for social media video production.
That's an interesting question. Right now the guidance says electronic equipment such as computers and things like that are ineligible, and so I think that first glance a drone is probably considered one of those. So I would say it's probably ineligible at this point. Yeah, you could look at maybe rental costs if that's something that you're doing as part of a social media campaign production. So maybe there's other ways, or hiring a consultant to, you know, do that kind of video production as part of your media campaign. So I think just looking at other ways maybe to get at that aspect of what you're trying to do.
Okay. And then renting a van pool for bringing people to meetings is
That's another interesting one. Yeah, we do allow for transportation costs, but it's, I think, primarily for staff to get to places. So I'm not sure, I guess, how a van pool would fall in, but I think this one might be a case-by-case basis to just give us a little more detail. So reach out to us offline, and maybe we can get a little more insight as to what kind of van pool activity you're trying to talk about.
Right, and so this is just a follow-up to that discussion of the question was related to for the needs in some rural areas, as it's hard for people to attend activities. So this question is about changing the scope for equipment purchases that weren't in the original scope. What's the process for it?
Yeah, so that's kind of what we are clarifying in the new update that you'll see soon, is kind of what this scope change process is, and there's a few variations of scope changes. So there's work plan modifications, which these minor cost shifts would probably fall under, and so that's just a matter of reaching out to your district, who will then contact us in headquarters at Caltrans, and we can work through those work plan modifications. And as long as the intent of the program and the activities themselves are not changing, we can probably easily make those changes with some justification. And then just to build on to that just for reference. If changes are a little more major than that and they are shifting activities, or maybe the intent of the program as originally planned is changing slightly, then it would go toward a more formal scope change process, and we'd have to work through that, and it would have to be run and approved by the California Transportation Commission, or the CTC. So it just kind of depends on the level of scope changes. So if they're very minor changes to add items or shift costs, that can just be done through Caltrans. Right. So let us know.
Okay, so let's get this first question, and then I think someone was blinking up there, so we'll go back up there. Can you speak to how agencies are engaging high schools based on the funding limitations placed on grade level? So I don't know if, we could take our shot, and Peter, if you want to speak up, I think we understand what your question is, but if you want to ask it a different way, if you don't hit it the first time, let us know.
So I think that's actually something that we have taken out in our revised guidance. I think the requirement that it be safe routes to school be only K through 8th grade was from, I think, the previous safe routes to school legislation that got folded into the active transportation program. But now that the ATP has majority of state funds with SB1 funding, those limitations aren't the same. So there are a lot of projects actually that are funded that work with high schools. So it is eligible, and you can do that. And so we just would have to make sure that the funding matches, but we can do that.
Okay. And so Peter, if we didn't answer your question to your, if you have any follow-up, let us know. We can unmute you. But for right now, we'll go to Teresa's question. Will you highlight any changes in these guideline modifications so that we'll all know what's changed?
Yeah, we can. So I think our intent is that we will be posting the final guidance update when Cycle 5 Call for Projects opens on, I think, March 25th. So it should be posted by then. So we'll probably have a clean document, with no changes marked up on it on the official website. But we can definitely provide maybe alongside it or on the Resource Center website or something, some ways to show you exactly what has changed. So yes, we can provide that.
Great. And this is a great question. Will the new guidance be applicable to any current ongoing ATP project?
Yeah, so I think I don't remember where, it's either on our website or maybe it's in the guidance itself. But yeah, so the new guidance is intended to be, the latest guidance that everyone can and should follow. But in case there is, some discrepancies or something with the previous guidance, definitely just let us know and reach out to us if something needs to change. But yeah, when the new guidance comes out, all projects should be looking to the newest guidance.
Right. And then, is there a suggested list that identifies the best, most effective giveaways or incentives per age group that benefit the program? I don't believe we have such a list, but as we think about what resources need to be developed for the ATP program, that could definitely have a lot of value. I think behavior changes, right, is one of the central goals for the active transportation program, and how do we do that, through incentives and through incentives that have a fair and just benefit cost. So I think, yeah, these are things that I think we're willing to consider, and that's a great idea for a future resource. Thanks for.
Yeah, and I think at this point too, I know like we did earlier with the with another question, if anyone on the phone maybe has some insights as to what they've done with certain age groups and incentives and giveaways, definitely raise your hand or let us know on the chat that you're interested in, telling your story or your experience, because I think that could help others as well.
Great. Oh, we've got some blinking from the participants. See who's interested in speaking up. Miguel, I think. Oh, wait, he's unable. He doesn't have a mic. So, all right. All right.
Well, yeah, we'll definitely keep this in mind, and if anyone does think of something, there'll be a time actually later in the webinar that we can bring this up again. Yeah, so someone suggested we maybe do a Google Sheet or something where the group could enter ideas. So, so I think, you know, I mean, for the time being, enter anything you want in the chat box or email us, and we'll compile a list and try to share it out as well.
Right, and we might need to figure out a file sharing system that works for works for everyone across the state.
And we'll talk about this at the end too. But you know, the point of these teleconferences are to kind of have this discussion. And so maybe if this is a particular topic we want to dedicate a whole hour to or something in the future, we could definitely do that and have people, you know, come prepared and have that discussion. So we could keep this in mind for sure for future technical assistance.
All right, should we move on to the next slide? Okay.
Well, the next, Emily mentioned the next section of our meeting, and it has arrived. we want to, this is Mary Ann, we want to hear from you, and on any upcoming events or activities, and that would also lead into some of you mentioned activities that you'd like for us to attend. So, of course, you can certainly email us, or you can bring up those exciting events in this discussion section of the meeting. We want this to be, we'll do this for about 15-20 minutes as you all speak up and tell us about what you're doing, your successes, your challenges. If you have questions of each other, we can unmute you and you can speak. I have asked a couple of folks that I know to start our discussion, and first I'll introduce Rachel Pata from Alameda County Public Health Department to talk to us a little bit about what she's doing. We're looking for you on there, and we'll unmute you. And then next we'll have another Public Health Department speak. Go ahead, Rachel.
Good afternoon. Hi, everybody. Thanks for this invite to share. We have active in Oakland a Staff Safe Routes to School program that's a non-infrastructure program, obviously funded. And currently our work is supported by our Alameda County Public Works Department, who holds the master contract. And we are the Public Health Department Nutrition Program specifically. Through our work, we are working with the school district in Oakland, primarily right now charter schools and middle schools. And the piece that the Public Health Department holds in particular that is unique is a safety patrol program. So this is a program which enlists elementary school age students, 3rd through 5th grade, to be leaders and ambassadors in cultures of safety at their school sites, to staff drop-off zones and pick-up zones before and after school, and also hold the role of being ambassadors on their school site. We have great support from the school district to support them. For example, the school district has institutionalized Safe Routes Wellness Champions among their cohort of wellness champions who support their overall wellness policies for the district. In addition, we partner with the City of Oakland Police Department, particularly around doing training on driver safety, pedestrian safety, bike safety with the students at the school sites. One piece of that we're glad is an outcome is that each school that has a safety patrol has a traffic safety plan. So this is something that principals, concerned parents, neighbors gather to do an assessment around the school site to determine the best pathways, walkers, cars, etc. In the middle schools, it's a little bit more traditional in terms of doing support for the walk to school day, bike to school day, and golden sneaker contests. We do also pre-survey and post-survey our students to see well, one, how they get to school at the beginning, and then if that shifted over time at the end, but also to see if there's a change in their knowledge, skills, and abilities around de-escalation, for example, of parents who might drive up a little bit angry in the morning, or asking what their skill level changes around learning new pedestrian safety skills and tactics at their school sites. So that's a little bit of what we're doing. Yep.
Thanks so much, Rachel. I really appreciate it. And we also have another Rachel, and this is from the Butte County Public Health Department, Rachel Phillips. Go ahead.
Hi.
Hello.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Hi, my name is Rachel Phillips, Butte County Public Health. I'm a health educator in our Cycle 4 ATP grant. So I kind of just wanted to share a little bit about what we have going on. One exciting thing we have is with our grant, we have executed a subcontract. So we actually have partnered with a group of a bike advocacy group called Chico Velo. So through them, we actually have trained 8 local LCIs, so league cycling instructors, and then they are able to participate in our grant and do some of the work that we have put into our scope of work. So to become a league cycling instructor, they have to go through a rigorous 3-day course where they learn to teach others how to cycle and cycle safely. So they are really the professionals who are going to come out and help us with bike rodeos, bike lessons, mechanic lessons, community workshops, and so we're really excited about that. And it's also a good partnership because we're able to kind of give back to Chico Velo, and then they are also seen more in the community. So we're really excited about that. Also, we have kind of fostered a collaboration with Chico State University. So there's about 17,000 students in our little community up here who attend Chico State, and unfortunately there's some of the biggest violators of some of the bike safety or bike laws. So we're collaborating with the sustainability coordinator who is trying to increase walking and biking around the campus. We're holding safety workshops and bike maintenance workshops, as well as having some of those LCIs participate in some guided rides around Chico. They're going to the Chico State Farm, Farmers Market, stuff like that. We're also working with the Chico State Police to possibly establish a bicycle citation diversion program. So if they're able to cite, they would go through an education course and have the fee of the citation waived, and that would be held by us through our grant. And then also part of our grant, we are specifically in 4 elementary schools. So we're really like heating up right now. We have bike rodeos, walk to school days, bike safety lessons, all scheduled throughout the spring. And I can get you guys some of those dates if you would like to come and attend. And then we are also just supporting some events that the schools have going on already. And then the last thing is we are also working with our Public Works Department to get them some of that data, that health data, specifically from Healthy Places Index, so that they can write their Cycle 5 grant.
Thanks, Rachel. Lots going on in Butte County. Thanks so much. Do we have others that want to talk, especially if you have upcoming events? We'd love to hear about successes, challenges, or if you have questions of each other. That's why these teleconferences, we feel these teleconferences are important. Jeannie LePage, did you want to say anything? Oh, maybe we'll. Yeah, let's start with Teresa. We can unmute Teresa first, and then we'll go back to.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Yes,
Teresa.
Hi, my name is Teresa Buchan. I'm at the University of California at Santa Cruz, And we are in the first year of a 4-year, well, it's a combined infrastructure and non-infrastructure that we're going to be really expanding our bike safety program for the campus community, in particular students, but for staff and faculty as well over the 4 years. Looking at all kinds of bike, we have a variety of programs, bike safety presentations, including jump bikes, where there's the electric bikes in town, but also just e-bikes in general. If for those who aren't more familiar with our campus, we have a mile or two of 5 to 7% grades, and we really feel that the e-bikes are a game changer, but it presents new safety challenges for people. Looking at just a variety of outreach methods, we're going to be doing some e-bike demonstration test rides and discount programs, and we're contracting with Ecology Action, a nonprofit group. Jeannie actually works there, that we've been working with them for years now, and this will just really be expanding our program. But the new challenge that we're dealing with is our campus, like many others, just went completely online. So we had to cancel our events for next week because students aren't here. And right now the online mandate is, at least we're in finals next week and then spring break, but then the first week of spring quarter will be online, and then my guess, probably like everybody else's, is going to go beyond April 3rd, but that's the directive we have right now. So that's our new challenge, and I have contacted Desiree Fox up at CTC, who deals with you know, the ATP program, and just said, you know, well, we may need an extension, or we may need somehow to refigure what we're doing if students aren't on campus for all of spring quarter, and hopefully, you know, it doesn't go beyond that. But so I'm curious if others, you know, elementary schools might shut down, high schools you're dealing with, other college campuses, you were just talking about Chico. So anyway, I'd love to hear what people are thinking. And, you know, we have thought at some point about developing an online training or some different online trainings about properly fitting a helmet or properly locking your bikes, things like that we've been dealing with, but we might have to revamp a little if this continues in other ways. So that's all.
Okay, thank you. I think you've done what we've asked earlier, for you to contact your person at Caltrans, and Desiree hopefully will give you some input. I assume we're all working with that. And I know we did have a question about, more an administrative question about if the new guidelines apply to those under Cycle 3, ENI new guidelines?
Yeah, and they will apply. So, you know, you could follow the new guidelines. I don't think we're like taking anything out that should impact your project, but we're kind of adding new things. So if, you know, you see something in there that you're like, oh, maybe this can be used in our project or something, just reach out to us and we can help you make those work plan modifications if needed.
Okay, great.
But yeah, I think, sorry, just to go back, I think there was a couple of questions that had come up previously regarding the cancellation of events, as Teresa had mentioned. So I did want to kind of loop back and just see if anyone else on the call just wanted to chime in on that aspect before we move on to a new topic. Since Teresa kind of asked if anyone in the group was experiencing maybe similar things, and it seems like many are. So maybe some programs are also canceling events as well, or have to postpone them maybe till fall or something until we know more.
I believe, yeah. So I believe Jeannie LePage, and I keep on calling on Jeannie. Jeannie is actually a member of the Active Transportation Program Advisory Committee, and so she's been reaching out to us quite a bit to kind of weigh in on some of the things we've been talking about today. But also, yeah, she brought up this question. So let's unmute her right now and see if she can help us with this conversation a little bit.
Can you hear me?
Hi, Jeannie. Yes, we can. Thanks.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you. Well, really, everybody's, if they aren't facing this challenge yet, I believe they will be soon. And I guess I'm looking for two different things. That if the folks at ATRC, maybe in, I don't know if they could collaborate with Office of Traffic Safety, because I know some of my fellow grantees have been contacted by OTS asking them if they're going to be able to deliver this spring. If we had clear direction from funders that either we modify our programming and modify it in ways that we can all agree are safe both for our staff and for the clients we're serving, i.e. we don't use bikes and helmets at the bike rodeos, that maybe we just, for this spring, have students walk through a course and we aren't touching students. Mm-hmm. You know, just kind of modifications that will incorporate some of the social distancing mandates that we're seeing at the local and state level, and incorporate those into our programs, knowing that, yeah, it's not the program as envisioned, but who could have envisioned that this was going to happen? So either that, or that we would say, I guess we're not going to deliver on our deliverables this spring, which clearly would have staffing repercussions for our organizations. So we're currently looking at this. We just had an elementary school locally in Santa Cruz County closed this morning, so we made a decision to cancel an event at a neighboring elementary school, and internally we're having lots of conversations about how to cope. So it would be, I guess, two things. It would be great for some of the statewide funders to give us some direction, because I'm sure you're going to be inundated by these kinds of questions. And secondly, maybe we could reach out to our partners up in Washington to see how they've coped. Did they modify things, or did they just stop things? Is there a safe way to go, to proceed? We have so many public health partners involved. I also would be looking to them for guidance. That's kind of what I'm asking for, I guess. Yeah. We could all put our heads together.
Yeah, I appreciate this, Jeannie. I always appreciate you kind of starting the conversation, and we are so Marianne and I are part of the California Department of Public Health, and I just wanted to let folks know that there has been guidance that's been issued by the department for guidance for schools, colleges, and large public events to prepare and protect Californians from COVID-19. A lot of the guidance was issued just earlier this week. I'm seeing March 7th, so we can make sure that goes out to everyone. And there's there's definitely some big picture guidance, and then I think, but what Jeannie was mentioning about, whether programs can be modified in such a way to allow for social distancing. I think, yeah, we can definitely work on that, and I think reaching out to our counterparts in other states, in particular Washington, could be really, really helpful for us. So Mary and I are privy to being in a branch with other public health programs, and we do know that that there have been a number of events that are being either rescheduled, postponed, rescheduled, or attempted to be put online. But yeah, I think that some of the interactive programming that we do, say, on bicycles or in the community, I think that we should be a little more thoughtful about how we think about disease prevention. And try to have some guidance on that we can share with OTS and others. So thank you for bringing that up. But I do like the idea about, walking through courses instead of riding through them. I think that's definitely a piece. And then the guidance that's from the state, I just want to mention that, if schools are shut down, that's one thing. The event guidance is really particular to events that are for 250 people or more. So some of you may or may not fall into this category. So we'll share that information with you, and hopefully that'll help in your local discussions. And then Jeannie, we can definitely look into having another discussion, maybe in this kind of format, where we can invite other state partners or other states into the conversation as well.
And I think in terms of meeting your grant requirements, do the best you can, postpone things, cancel things, put them off till a later time if need be. maybe make modifications like we suggested, and we'll give out some guidance as we can. Or, if you need a time extension, that's another option. So to kind of, to still meet the requirements you committed to, but figure out a way to kind of spread them out or modify them in some way to make sure that, we are following the guidance and keeping everyone healthy and safe. And if anything needs to be canceled or removed, just keep Caltrans informed.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
There was someone, Peter, had a unique Safe Routes to School, Walk to School Day event.
Yeah, Peter, we can unmute you and have you share?
Yeah, for sure. For International Walk to School Day, we had record participation in the San Luis Obispo County region across all the school districts, with 2 districts participating at 100% of their schools. And so higher numbers across the board, which was cool. But one specific one worth calling out is a school that has really poor walkability and bikeability in our North County, like far north. And we were able to do basically like a walk, bike audit, and the kids that rode the school bus system there were able to participate and get a reward on Walk to School Day. And in that way we added a school that would otherwise tell their parents or families not, that they're not allowed to bike or walk to the school. And I think it's important to try and loop in the schools that are basically holding a policy that says your families can't walk and bike here to participate, just because obviously we're trying to get the next generation to recognize the value that the past generation missed in building campuses in those ridiculous spots. So, yeah, I don't know if that's applicable, but that's kind of a cool implement. We're hoping to do something similar for Bike to School Day.
That's great. I appreciate you sharing these kind of added elements to the traditional walk to school day model. I think that those are important things to highlight. And again, I don't want to jump ahead in the slide deck, but we do want to profile kind of the added value that these events can have for the community and for kind of helping to meet the goals of the active transportation program. So let's see if I don't want to move us on too early, but I'm also watching time. We have about 10 more minutes of the scheduled time, and I feel like we have a couple more slides. So unless there's one question. I feel like we should get to this one question about documentation before we move on. So the question is about so you're, as you're implementing your program, you're capturing things like sign-in sheets, photos, and flyers. What's the minimum amount of documentation that awardees should be keeping record of when they submit for reimbursement?
And so we don't handle invoices at headquarters level where myself and Summer work. So that would be probably a district question. So contact your district ATP coordinator or DLAE to ask that question. But we do have deliverables on the 22R. So, it's there to, just have that accountability that, the activity did happen and you can demonstrate that it happened based on the deliverables. But yeah, you'd have to contact the district as to what exact deliverables they require in order to process an invoice. And then just in terms of deliverables in general, we are, always looking to gather resources or best practices. So, something more substantial maybe than a sign-in sheet or something like that. But photos, flyers, any kind of guidebooks that you create, media campaign, digital or print material. Yeah. If any of that stuff gets created as part of your event or your program, which, it does in all cases, definitely just, send them to us or let us know, like, hey, we created this, and we'd love to see it, basically. So. Yeah, and I have two thoughts to that one. One, in a future teleconference, I think we should definitely spend some time on invoicing and documentation and kind of what are the standards, the minimum, and kind of the gold standard or the green standard. We can do all of those
different standards so that we can have some more consistency across the state. I think that that would be very valuable, and we can tap local assistant staff to help with that. And then the other thing I wanted to bring up is that with regard to documentation, I do know I've seen some of the attendees on the list, and they're doing a lot with media and the press and having like the local televisions come out and highlight opening events and things like that. So if you can somehow figure out how to record that as well as part of your documentation, I think that's very valuable for the program and the whole. Hopefully you're communicating with your electives about what you're doing. You know, we're certain that that's happening, but I think it also helps to feed that up to the state level so that we can kind of also know, you know, what you're doing in a, you know, beyond the paper and forms, beyond the paper and the forms that we scrutinize here at the state level. Okay.
And just to give another shout out to our upcoming non-infrastructure guidance, that media campaigns additional appendix that will be attached to that is going to be a great resource for following and getting recommendations on how to follow media campaign guidelines and just some best practices around what you should follow for your project.
Yep. Okay. So let's keep on moving on the slide deck for now.
Yeah, so we have a few final things we just wanted to share with you. So first of all, thank you so much for everyone's participation and your willingness to share your projects. You know, I think it's just always good to hear from, you know, those on the ground implementing it, you know, puts these projects into real terms and, you know, shows us the difference it's making. So thank you for your participation. So this slide is all about site visits and maybe a project interview, maybe a one-on-one call with individual implementers. So us at the ATRC, we just want to see and hear about your projects on the ground. It helps us get more familiar with what you're working on. It keeps us having a pulse basically on the, you know, newest practices and things like that. So if you have upcoming events this spring, as if they're not canceled, let us know when they are. And hopefully we can maybe schedule for one of us to maybe come and be a part of it or, you know, see it in action. And we can, you know, basically use that as a best practice or can share it with others. So, so let us know specific dates and times and locations of anything coming up this spring, summer. If things are getting postponed till fall and maybe they're not scheduled yet, you know, in a couple months, let us know. We'll try to send out some reminders. But we love to just kind of keep an inventory on what's going on, and if we can come and visit, we'd love to. So let us know, keep us informed.
Another really cool feature that we're working on right now is these project profile highlight sheets, and this is something that's going to be displayed on our ATRC website. And it's going to act as both a resource and also just a highlight of non-infrastructure projects. The goal is to showcase components and outcomes of non-infrastructure projects that have been successful. And we plan to have around 12 of these by the end of the year. The way that we find candidates for these project highlights are through submitted completion reports. But again, if you'd like to have your completed project highlighted, please let us know. This is something that we're really excited about, and these images here are an example of what our project profiles will look like. And this one in particular, just going back to a question that was asked earlier, this one's going to be a great resource for activities for schools. And this one specifically spells out elementary schools, middle schools, and high school activities that were done and what types of programs were held through that and things like that. So this will be a fantastic resource for that.
Are we seeing some hands being raised right now? No? Okay. Yeah, and so I just wanted to build off of that quickly, and I don't think that this was my slide to speak to, but I was just going to jump in and say that there was a question, is there a newsletter featuring the non-infrastructure programs? I think that we've been in talks. We are going to be issuing newsletters, and we've been thinking about different content that we can include, and I think the profiles are definitely going to be a major part of those newsletters, so stay tuned.
Yeah, and so just one more note on the project profiles. So we'll be taking, what is provided in the completion reports and maybe any supplemental documentation that's provided to write those. But we would love to work with, you guys who are the implementers to make sure, it makes sense and it's reflective of your project. So we'll be reaching out to you as well as needed to, maybe do a review of it and make sure it's accurate and well representative of your project. All right, so this is, I think, our last slide. So this was, as I mentioned at the beginning, our first kind of non-infrastructure teleconference, a little more informal, a little more discussion-based. And as I mentioned, we'd like to hold these quarterly, and rather than kind of being a, broad, all-encompassing topic on non-infrastructure like this one was, we were thinking we would structure them more in particular topics or themes so that we can have more of an in-depth discussion on these certain items. So I have some examples on the slide, and basically it's a question to you all of what topic or theme are you most interested in. So things like maybe a focused teleconference on media campaigns or ticket diversion programs. Butte County mentioned they were doing one. Open streets and demonstration events are a trend that we're seeing happening more and more. Evaluation methods. Sustainability was brought up earlier, so maybe something on that. So these are just ideas, that we're thinking of that could be potential interest to you all. So, so let us know. So if you have a minute right now, type it in the chat box of what you'd be most interested in, so that we can maybe, get a sense of what our next one will be. And we could probably follow up also with a survey that can gauge this as well. So if you could answer that as well, then we can schedule our next one on a particular topic of interest for you all. And then the next question on there is, if you are interested in one of these topics and have a case study or a short presentation that can kind of set the stage, that would be great as well. So yeah, so let us know in the chat box what you're most interested in. All right, and with that, I think we are done. Yeah, do we have any? Okay, we just have some comments.
Yeah, well,
okay.
let's let the comments
roll. Keep them coming in.
Keep them coming in. We have a couple more minutes, and so, yeah, take that time. This helps us tremendously to have your feedback and, yeah, different requirements and things like that. I think what we can probably do is compile this in a list and then turn it into a survey and maybe have people rank them about what they want to hear first, and so that will help us prioritize what, our schedule. Yeah, and I appreciate all of these comments. I'll just read through some of them. I think it would be good to explore different needs of people based on gender, media campaigns, demonstration events, educational collateral, mailers, postcards, lawn signs, methods for evaluation, projects that are not safe to school focused, and then some administrative pieces, quarterly report requirements for non-infrastructure specifically or non-infrastructure only, and then arrival, dismissal, rebranding, just a lot of different issues. We can let you please feel free to continue typing into the chat function. Maybe we can switch to the next slide just as a reminder that we're always available for follow-up. And I think from all of us in the room, we really appreciate you attending today. We hope that this has given you some ideas to think about moving forward. We definitely, I think, gained a lot from this first teleconference, and I think, as many of you are aware, after our webinar, we have some post communications. We'll recap what was discussed and share the resources. I know I have it on my to-do to share the COVID-19 prevention materials from CDPH for mass gatherings and for schools, just so you have a quick link to that. And then we're going to do some follow-up calls with again, on early to COVID-19 and yes. And then, of course, as a last piece, we are going to be sharing the PowerPoint, and we've recorded this teleconference for future reference. So we're at 2:30.
Perfect timing.
And it looks like the comments have stopped. So on that note, thank you from the ATRC.
Yep. Thank you all for your participation, and we'll talk to you and follow up with you soon. Have a great rest of your day.
Bye.
Bye.